Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to create the Wally Warbles boss from Cuphead. Similar to the first phase of Esther Winchester, we have to create a building, if you consider a birdhouse to be a building. And this works as the main body of the boss. The outside of the birdhouse is a kind of strange color. It's this reddish tan color, so I mixed together a bunch of different colors and I think I matched it pretty good. In order to get some perfectly flat sheets, I'm using my pasta machine. This template I'm using is actually for a gingerbread house, but it seemed to be the same shape as a birdhouse. Also, to add a little bit of contrast between the pieces, the side and the roof are a little bit darker than the front and back. Let's add in some wooden texture. I usually do this in 3 steps. First, I scratch it up with the dentist pick, then I cut it into planks, and then I take a dotting tool and make a bunch of little holes. Oh, and secret step number 4, cut out some random chunks from the side. Since this is a birdhouse, we need a way to get in and out, so I'm using this resin bottle, which is the perfect size to create a nice little hole for our bird head. After baking, we can take some super glue and put these pieces together. This feels exactly like making a gingerbread house, except it actually stays together. I think the roof pieces were a little bit too long, so I removed a small section at the end. You're going to be seeing a lot of this blue going forward because it's one of the main colors of the boss. This is kind of a weird thing to create because we can't actually fill in the interior of the house, so I'm hoping by putting this wire here, it's gonna hold everything in place. Let's take a minute to talk about the boss. Now this is a flying boss, which means you have to fly in the plane, and it's extremely difficult. It's way harder than any of the ground bosses. Luckily, there's not too many of these throughout the game. I'm going for the specific attack where he goes absolutely insane and shoots feathers all over the place, which, by the way, is really hard to dodge. At this point in the battle too, his teeth are completely shattered, so we need to create a bunch of chipped up teeth. And yes, this bird has teeth. And we can kind of just randomly place those throughout the mouth. And I think that's looking pretty terrifying, which is what we're going for. Since he's pretty damaged at this point, I want his eyes to also reflect that. So I'm going to keep them closed and try to make it as if it's a snapshot of when he just got hit. I was afraid of moving forward with the facial details because I was going to end up smashing the whole shape of his head, so I baked it, and now we can add on the extra details. I learned something new with this video, and maybe you will too. The top little feather things on a bird's head is called the crest. Something you probably didn't know and probably never needed to know, but now you do. These pieces of paper are going to be the perfect size for the wings. And yes, I'm turning into a Smurf. I'm not very familiar with creating wings or feathers, so I kind of just made some cuts and tried to mirror that on the other side. Just like making fingers, we need to round off the tips and the edges. And once we get a nice rounded shape, we can push the feathers off to the side and duplicate that with the other one. I think the one on the right turned out much better. If we bake it on top of this paper towel, it will hold its shape in the oven and have a nice little curve once it comes out. I've also decided to close up the bottom of the birdhouse because otherwise you're going to see inside of it and it's not going to look very good. The wings are straight, but I want them to be tilted, so I need to cut this at an angle and also get a nice little slant. Using my masterful level 99 construction, I created this elegant wooden base. To make sure our bird is in attack mode, I added a nice little slant. This is one of those times where I just have to sit back for a second and appreciate what I've done, because this looks incredible. I'm sure these little feather puffs on their thighs have a name, but we've done enough biology for this video. We're just gonna call them feather puffs. My worst nightmare has returned: wires. They're just always such a pain to work with. Luckily, it's just a small little section and not an armature, so I think I'll survive. I feel like this detail is very common on birds, at least on cartoon birds. It's these little rings that go around the leg, and I suppose it kind of looks like a worm. I baked these leg sections to lock them into place, and now let's create some feet. These are pretty much the same as creating hands, just in a different format. I'm going to secure those onto the legs, and then we can add in some little spikes for the talons. And that is our final detail, so here it is, Wally Warbles from Cuphead. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments which boss you want to see next. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.